Okay, welcome back, everybody. So as we kind of conclude our discussion today, and thank you for joining us, it's been really, really enlightening. I'm just curious, we always ask people, what do they see coming? You know, you have this great position where you can not only lead a team and help create priorities for a very large group, but also, I would imagine, you're talking with innovators, you're talking with inventors, you're talking with people that are probably trying to sell you things, to be frank. And I'm just curious, and also from an operational perspective or from a trend perspective, from a regulation perspective, what are things that you see on the horizon and things that excite you, but also things that maybe keep you up at night in terms of like challenges that you think currently we don't have a lot of solutions for?
Yeah, very great question. I think definitely, as citizens, as one of the people that lives in one and only Earth, definitely climate change is a big challenge and big impact to individual of us. And be it whether we're a property developer, where we individual associations, company, or even individually, I think definitely an upcoming trend is to look into innovative solutions that can help mitigate the effect of climate change. So for instance, for us as a real estate developer, we are indeed exploring more innovative solutions to reduce carbon,
Sure.
to reduce the emissions, because I know in the market that talks a lot about carbon offset, etc. But to be honest, if we were to make our places carbon neutral, we can't just look into carbon offset.
Yeah.
We also need to look into an array of measures to reduce the carbon, reduce the heat, reduce the effect. So I definitely think innovation and sustainability goes hand in hand in terms of mitigating climate change. The second thing that keeps me up at night is actually more on a human factor, which is the shortage of sustainability talents. Because ESG is growing so fast, and I think today almost every company that I know of, they do have their own sustainability team, and I have drinks with all my sustainability friends, and one common challenge we realize is recruiting professional sustainability talents.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of discussion with different associations as well. And that's why I think today's is amazing having this opportunity for everybody to learn about ESG. And I think ESG knowledge is very important for everybody to learn together. And I think that sort of helps us to hopefully close the gap of ESG talents as well.
And I'm just curious, so there's specific knowledge, like accounting or legal skills, for example. So I'm sure there's very hyper-specific ESG skills for data collection, data management, governance-related things, et cetera. Each of those pillars would have a lot of different skills. I'm curious to get your perspective on this, because I think part of, when we talk about ESG professionals, part of what we're also talking about, at least from a business school professor standpoint, what I'm thinking about is teaching this new framework for how businesses are constructed and their perspectives on sustainability, including all of these different silos in terms of like the environment, in terms of the social ramifications of our business models, in terms of having adequate governance, et cetera. So is it the skill side, or is it like the framework, or both that you're seeing?
Both.
Yeah.
Well, for instance, if we were to work in a listed companies, nowadays, it shouldn't just be the sustainability team that understand what TCFD stands for,
Yeah.
or TNFD stands for, or what ISSB stands for. It should be a lot of other departments and a lot of other professionals in the organization should also understand this terminology. But if we look into the ESG terminology, it's growing so fast.
Yeah.
In the past few years, I actually have to specifically hire an external consultant to also train our finance colleagues to understand what ISSB stands for, what TNFD stands for, TCFD stands for. So with all these new terminology coming in, I think that is a very urgent need for everybody to catch up the pace
Yeah.
as well. So I think the first thing is really the capability building. That is very important. And the secondly is it's so overwhelming. It's so thrilled to see a lot of youngsters with the passion in sustainability and
Yeah.
ESG. And I have interviewed so many students and graduates. But one thing I always realize is the gap, the knowledge gap as well, is that when they learn from the universities, they might not realize the difference between
Yeah.
learning from the curricula versus working in corporate sustainability. It's a bit, it's not the same world. So I'm actually thrilled to see that a lot of universities, like yourself, like today, actually recruit people like us, hire people like us to voluntarily teach anybody the reality of what corporate sustainability is. Because I think a lot of graduates, when they want a job in corporate sustainability with no background in corporate sustainability, more often they found that there's a gap from what they learn from textbook versus what is the reality in corporate sustainability. So I think it's great for corporate to work with universities to help to close this knowledge gap as well.
And so you mentioned youth and the next generation of talent. Before we conclude, I'm just curious if you can speak to the next generation of leadership, because I know, you mentioned to me previously that a big part of the drive for Sino Group, and I assume across a lot of companies, and one of the things that may be a little bit unique about Hong Kong is we do have a lot of family-owned companies that maybe started out as private companies, where some of them have maybe listed and whatnot, but they still have a very, very strong kind of family core in terms of their core leadership team. And can you speak to the idea of like the next generation of leadership and how you're seeing that change around ESG and sustainability?
Oh, definitely. I think nowadays a lot of young leaders, they do have the mindset of sustainability and getting stronger and stronger. And I think that credits to education, because education nowadays, since a primary school in Hong Kong, they're already learning sustainability. And I know in secondary school, they're actually penetrating even more. I sit at the government that works with Education Bureau as well. So I think having education in sustainability at young age really helps to nurture future sustainability leaders. I myself, I have a 5-year-old daughter who's studying kindergarten. And even at her age, in her kindergarten now, they are learning upcycling. So every art craft that I work with my daughter at home is also made of upcycled materials. And my daughter is also learning about marine conservation, even as young as 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I think that is great. That is a potential in Hong Kong and in many places, is actually to start this sustainability education as young age as possible, so that we can build up the sustainability culture, the real sustainability culture in our society.
Yeah, and as someone who is a transplant here, but considers Hong Kong my home, and I'm a permanent resident, I've been here for 17 years. I hope to retire here and live here beyond that. One of the things that I often tell my students from a vision perspective is Hong Kong is already, I think, one of the most iconic and beautiful cities in the world. Imagine if we can get to the point where our oceans are blue again, and where there's not plastic waste on the beaches and things, which we can, and it starts with educating our youth. It starts with us. It starts with companies and groups like Sino Group. So yeah, I think want to leave on an optimistic point. Because I do think that we can kind of get to the point where we're creating these sustainable businesses that are profitable, that are benefiting the community, but simultaneously are really truly sustainable in terms of the broad term of the word, or meaning of the term, excuse me. Okay, so maybe can you give us like one last thought or one last sentence to end this? Like what is your kind of last thought around ESG and Sino Group?
Well, it's not just from Sino Group. It's actually as a mother, as a person who's really passionate in sustainability, as a person who speaks to so many students and everybody really about sustainability. Sustainability is not a destination. It never was, and it will never will be. It's a journey, really. And I have to say that everybody needs to work harder together to learn in this challenging yet exciting journey together, because ESG is such a growing trend, and I'm so glad that we have opportunity like this to learn together. And my second point is, if we were to make Hong Kong more sustainable, or any societies and worldwide best practice to be sustainable, today's examples also tells us that it's not just working silo. You have to work with cross-collaboration mindset.
Yeah.
So corporate have the opportunities to work with universities and also with like-minded NGOs or consultants. The formula will work perfectly if we were to combine our strengths and connect our strengths together to put our best practice into sustainability solutions. And I hope Hong Kong has, or even many other places, actually have more case studies where there are cross collaborations to drive sustainability solutions.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you've heard it from Melanie. I think this is the reality. We're on this journey together, and we're glad that you're all not only joining this ESG journey together, but really this learning journey together. So once again, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, all your sharing.
Thank you. Very insightful.